So first and foremost, I want to introduce you guys to Kyle. He's our presenter today. He's been providing the 3&6 team internally with GA4 training and support. He's our in-house guru. But since 2020, he's been helping companies of all sorts of backgrounds make this transition from Universal Analytics and prepare for that July 1st deadline, which I'm sure you've heard us talk about plenty of times. And if you just want to go to the third slide. So after today, we hope that you walk away with the basic one-on-one knowledge of what is GA4, an understanding of the reports and new terminology, how to access those basic reports, and then eventually how to customize your own reports. So this is going to be a high-level one-on-one workshop, but if you do need additional one-on-one support or training, a private training session, please reach out to us. We are offering that, and that is available to you guys. All right, and then I'll pass it along to Kyle.
Cool. Thanks very much, Alicia. And hello, everybody on the call. Hopefully, I can make this workshop really, really interesting, give you guys lots of information about GA4, and give you some sort of great opportunities to get stuck into the data that we can see. But first of all, what is GA4 and why are we talking about it? Well, I'm sure you've heard, and Alicia mentioned it just briefly. Universal Analytics, or UA, has been the analytics property that you're probably used to looking at. It's certainly been around since 2013, but from the 1st of July, Universal Analytics is ending. So no new information will be sent to Universal Analytics from that date. And then around 6 months to a year later, your access will be removed. And as much as we've tried, GA4 is here. No matter how much we've protested, Google, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that this is the approach they're going to take, and there's nothing, unfortunately, we can do about it. And I think the thing to say is that we are all in the same boat. GA4 is a tool that is constantly changing. We are still learning about it, and Google itself are releasing new features as they go along. Hopefully, as they kind of learn from feedback that we provided, but also maybe introducing things that we all knew and loved from Universal Analytics. So, why have they introduced it? Well, it's certainly the way that Analyst GA4 collects data is much more privacy focused. Universal Analytics and the way it collected data was quite outdated. And the focus is, as we move into a much more privacy focused world, GA4 will provide us with insights, provide us with data that maybe Universal Analytics couldn't just cope with. But it's not all that bad, and there are some excellent new features in GA4 which Tristan will sort of help illuminate.
Indeed, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that. So Google had to make changes, as Kyle mentioned there. They're wanting to move away from a cookie-based session, and they've been trying to figure out what the world is going to look like with much more privacy, and they've still not quite got that right. But one of the first steps in the road was moving into Google Analytics 4. They've approached this in a very, very different way than a lot of industry experts kind of expected. As Kyle mentioned there, in their infinite wisdom, I'm not sure how infinite it is, but in their wisdom, they have definitely changed a lot within the platform. And it's not just the look and feel of it. The layout has changed, metrics have changed, even the way that they capture data has changed in readiness for this privacy aspect. But with this comes a lot of new features and some benefits with it as well. So it's been fun to understand it and learn it over the time. And Google, as Kyle's mentioned, are constantly rolling out new things with GA4. It seems to be monthly at the moment. Things are disappearing, things are coming back in, new things are being added. So where we're going to be in 6 months' time in GA4 is probably going to be completely different from where we were now, which was different from 6 months ago as well. So there's too many to go through, but we'll briefly touch on a couple here as Kyle will run through.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan. I think one of the really, really cool new features that GA4 has is the ability to introduce what they've called enhanced measurements. So enhanced measurements, whereas previously, if you wanted to focus on trying to understand, which clicks people click on to leave the site, or if they wanted to understand, what kind of file downloads have happened, you would have to work with a developer to do that, or you'd have to use something like Google Tag Manager. But that's not the case anymore. So in GA4, you've got enhanced measurements. So you automatically track things like scroll data. So if somebody gets to the bottom of a page, that information is sent to GA4. If you've got a search function, you can search on the site and understand what people are searching for. You can understand how well people are acting with videos you've got for your properties, for example. And then I've mentioned before, but outbound clicks and file downloads are automatically tracked. And that's one of the really cool new features that you get from GA4 out of the box. But of course, it's really important that you actually set up GA4 correctly. And I'm just going to pass you back to Tristan, who will talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Kyle. As of the big countdown clock that is present on Google Analytics every time you log in, we currently have 10 days, 17 hours, 21 minutes, and 30 seconds until it switches over. So we can't be we can't be accused of not being told. But if you haven't switched over, you really need to start considering that now. But this is kind of your don't try this at home moment. By all means, if you feel comfortable and confident setting up GA4, do it. But I've been a digital marketer for over 10 years, and I'd consider myself as an expert at using Google Analytics, an expert user, you would say. But I wouldn't set up GA4 myself. That's something that I think is, even beyond my technical capability. And that's the reason why we've employed experts and why we've got experts on our team to set this up, because it's incredibly important. You need to get it right. There's so many things that can go wrong. That said, if you feel that you're capable of doing it and you want to give it a bash, by all means. So on the next couple of slides, there's a few tips and a few things to consider when you actually set up GA4.
Thanks very much, Tristan. So yeah, Tristan's absolutely right in mentioning about needing an expert to set up your Google Analytics 4 property, because one of the big things that I'm sure you'll all be aware of is cross-domain tracking, to ensure that when you're buying when your visitors are buying their room via the booking engine, for example, you want to ensure that you're still getting that properly attributed to which channel they came from. So that, I think, is where you might need to rely on an expert, because each booking engine is different and you will require cross-domain tracking for revenue information. I think it's important to say as well, I'll be referencing GA4 properties, which is different from hotel properties, but I will try and say GA4 at the start before I say property. So important to know there. So yeah, when you go in and set up your GA4 property, you'll want to go into the admin section and click create property, and then add a name that you would recognize. So maybe the name of the property itself or the hotel. Select your relevant industry category, and then make sure you are sort of adding the business size as required. That's really just used for feedback for Google. And then you can select your objectives, and I would go with baseline objectives rather than any other baseline objectives. So then you'd add the name of your URL, and then from there, you would either add your code that you're given directly to the site, or you'd use GTM and add it via Google Tag Manager, for example. But as I said, that's a really quick snapshot of how to set up a GA4 property, and don't hesitate to lean on the expertise from 3&6 for setting up, particularly when it comes to cross-domain tracking, because you want to ensure that you're getting the revenue information directly attributed to paid or organic, for example.